Ladies and gentlemen, there are two simple words, just two small words, that have the power to change absolutely everything in your life. But when these words are whispered, not to the world outside but into the deep silence of your own being, reality itself begins to bend and shift in ways you might not believe are possible. Doors that were once locked tight begin to open, strange and helpful coincidences rush into your life, delays that used to frustrate you start to dissolve, and what you once called impossible starts calling your name. But here is the great mystery that you must understand before we go any further. These two words are sacred, meaning they are special and should be treated with deep respect, and they are not meant to be shared with everyone you meet. They are not meant to be gossiped about with friends, they are not meant to be debated with family members at the dinner table, and they are not even meant to be spoken to the mirror where you might judge yourself. Because the moment you speak these powerful words out loud to someone who does not understand the language of the unseen world, you weaken their power and you drain the energy from your own dream. Doubt creeps in, logic takes over, and the seed of your manifestation is stolen before it even has a chance to grow. You see, true creation does not happen through hard physical effort or by forcing things to happen. It happens through identity, through assumption, and through becoming the state of what you desire before it actually shows up in your physical world. And these two words are the gateway. They are a portal to the version of you who already has the thing you are chasing. You may think you are here just to get some new information or to learn a new trick, but you are not here for that. You are here for a total transformation of who you are. This is not about a technique you do once and forget. It is about alignment, which means getting your insides to match the life you want on the outside. And alignment begins with the inner declaration, a quiet, bold, and unshakable statement that you make to yourself. So, I urge you, do not just listen to this speech like you listen to the radio or a podcast, but absorb it, feel it, and let it become part of you. Because by the end of this message, you will not only know the words, but you will know exactly why they work, how to speak them into the fabric of your life, and what to do once everything starts shifting in your favor. Stay with me because this is important. You have been taught your whole life to speak in order to inform people, to explain things, or to describe what is already happening around you. But I am here to awaken you to something much deeper, much holier, something that the ancient wise people knew but the modern mind has completely forgotten. Words are not simply vessels of expression or empty sounds. They are the womb of your world. They are the invisible tools with which you sculpt and build your reality every single day. You believe you are just speaking words, but in truth, those words are speaking you into existence. Every sentence you utter, every phrase you repeat, every inner monologue you accept as just a casual thought, these are not empty vibrations passing through the air. These are blueprints and instructions sent directly into the heart of creation. You may not see the effects instantly, just like you don't see a flower bloom the second you plant a seed. But make no mistake, every word spoken in belief returns to you not as an echo, but as a physical form, as people, as opportunity, as resistance, or as release. That is why it is not what you ask for that shapes your life. It is what you declare, what you inwardly accept as real. Now, listen very carefully because this is where it all begins to shift for you. When I say declare, I do not mean shouting from the rooftops with fanfare or putting on a performance for others. I mean a quiet knowing, a still and sacred inner voice that whispers reality into place, not because it wants to, but because it already sees it as done. The great tragedy is that most people speak their circumstances instead of their creation. They say things like, I am broke, I am tired, nothing ever works for me, no one listens to me. They think they are just describing their life, but they are actually prescribing it, meaning they are ordering more of the same. These are not reflections of reality. These are commands, orders to the unseen forces that obey only one master, which is belief clothed in words. Let that settle in your soul for a moment. You are always using this creative force, every minute of every day. The only question is whether you are using it consciously to build what you want, or letting it use you unconsciously to build what you don't want. The language of creation is not about complexity or using big, fancy words. It is not about eloquence or beauty or having a large vocabulary. The language of creation is identity. The moment you say, "I am," you are invoking the most powerful phrase in the universe. You are defining the unseen substance of your being. I am is not followed by facts. It is followed by fate. Say it with fear, and fear follows you. Say it with confidence, and the world reshapes itself to match that confidence. Say it with love, and love floods into your life. And yet most of us say, "I am," and follow it with lack, with limitation, with disbelief. Not because we want to, but because we were taught to do so. We were trained to be humble in all the wrong places. We were taught that boldness in speech is arrogance or being full of yourself. But what we call arrogance, creation calls clarity. The universe does not care how loud you speak. It only listens to how certain you are. Let me give you a simple example. If a man stands in front of a mirror and says, "I am successful," but his heart whispers, "I am not, I am a failure," which one do you think will shape his life? The whisper will win every single time, because it is not the volume of your voice that creates your reality. It is the intensity of your inner consent, your inner agreement with the statement. This is why I say it is not enough to just affirm things. You must assume them. You must speak the word and wear it like a skin. Live in it as though it were already true. You must think from the end result, not toward it. Speak not as someone who desires something, but as one who has already received it. This is where most people fail. They say, "I am wealthy," and then they immediately look at their bank account for evidence. They say, "I am loved," and then they wait for a text message to prove it. But creation doesn't work that way. It doesn't follow proof. It produces proof. Your words do not respond to the world. The world responds to your words. So now I ask you, what are you saying when no one is listening? What are you whispering to yourself when the lights are off and you are alone in bed? That whisper is the prayer being answered. That is the frequency you are living on. Your outer world is just a printout of your inner speech. The events you call life are just the echoes of yesterday's beliefs. And now you know, now you are awake to this truth. You will no longer say, "This is just the way things are." You will say, "This is the way I have imagined them to be." And you will begin to listen, to really listen to the words you casually mutter under your breath. You will catch yourself in the middle of a complaint and turn it into a command. You will rise from being a victim to being a visionary simply by shifting the way you speak. Say, "I am able," and watch as ability meets you. You will say, "I am chosen," and circumstances will bend to highlight your favor. You will say, "I am whole," and healing will begin, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped speaking against it. This is the divine code. It is hidden in plain sight. The sacred texts of every tradition speak it in symbols. The mystics live by it in silence. The prophets proclaimed it with fire in their bones. And yet here you are hearing it anew, not with your ears, but with your soul, because something within you already knows this. You felt it in the quiet moments, in the déjà vu, in the flashes of clarity that vanish before you can explain them. You have always known your words held weight. You just forgot that they were bricks in the house you are living in. So stop waiting for the world to tell you what is possible. Start telling the world what is. I am is your permission slip. I am is your access point. It is the beginning of every miracle and the root of every breakthrough. Let the world say what it wants. Let logic argue with you. Let doubt try to rise up against you. You hold to the word. Speak it in secret. Guard it with reverence. Repeat it until your bones believe it. And when your body still feels tired, say, I am renewed. When your bank account looks dry, say, I am overflowing. When no one claps for you, say, I am celebrated. Because eventually the outer world must mirror the inner world. It has no choice. Creation isn't optional. It is a law. And your words, they are the lawmaker. Speak them wisely. Speak them deliberately. Speak them in love. Because you are not here to describe life. You are here to declare it. And yet, as you begin to declare, as you dare to claim the I am, you will notice something strange, an urge to share it, to explain it, to speak it into the ears of others so that they might see your transformation and believe in it with you. But I must tell you with all the urgency of truth, do not do this. What is sacred must remain hidden, not because it is fragile, but because it is formless, and form takes shape best in silence. When you plant a seed into the earth, you do not pull it up each day to check if it is growing. You trust the mystery of the dark soil. You let the unseen do its perfect work. Likewise, when you speak your creative word, when you say, I am, and attach it to the reality you choose to live in, you must seal it inside yourself like a sacred vow. Speak it inwardly, consistently, with unwavering faith, but share it with no one. Not because others are evil or unworthy, but because they live in the logic of the seen world, and you are speaking from the authority of the unseen world. When you tell someone your declaration, especially one that has not yet taken visible form, they begin to reflect it through the lens of their own doubts, limitations, and fears. They look at your current results, not your inner shift, and without meaning to, they try to correct you back into their version of reality. Their words won't sound cruel. They may even sound caring. They might say, are you sure that's realistic? Or maybe you should have a backup plan. But make no mistake, every seed of doubt they plant becomes a delay in your manifestation. You do not need external approval for an inner truth. That is the trap. That is the noise. That is the delay. Because the moment you utter your desire into the ears of one who does not live by faith, you invite analysis. And analysis is the enemy of assumption. It begins to pull your declared word out of the womb of the subconscious, placing it back in the courtroom of reason. And what lives in reason must obey logic. But what lives in the unseen, what lives in spirit, is not subject to logic. It is subject to belief. So you must protect the early form of your vision. As a mother protects a child in her womb, it doesn't need to be explained. It needs to be nourished in thought, in feeling, in stillness. It needs to be kept away from the friction of disbelief, the erosion of criticism, and the chill of intellectual doubt. You may say, but I want support. I want someone to believe with me. And I tell you now, your own belief is more than enough. It is not a group vote. Creation is not a democracy. It is a decree. In the early stages of manifestation, silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. When you are gestating a new reality, speak less not just to others, but even to yourself. Let your declaration be brief but bold. I am. Let the feeling carry more weight than the words. Let the assumption become so normal, so familiar that you no longer feel the need to announce it. Because true power never explains itself. It simply is. When you walk in the knowing of a fulfilled desire, your need to prove it vanishes. You do not need to convince anyone of what you already are. The rose does not ask permission to bloom. It simply opens in season. Likewise, your word kept sacred will blossom in its appointed hour without your needing to justify it. And here is what is miraculous. When you stop announcing your dreams, they begin arriving faster. Not because the dream changed, but because your energy stopped leaking into the world of opinion. You are no longer dividing your creative power between imagining and explaining. You are letting it gather, condense, and focus. And when that happens, when your word becomes your atmosphere, reality bends quietly, certainly, and powerfully. So don't feel pressured to reveal your inner work to outer eyes. Don't advertise what is being woven in secret. Let your transformation speak through results, not announcements. Let the shift happen so deeply that when the world finally sees it, they say, "When did this happen?" And all you will do is smile, because you will know it happened the moment you said in silence, "I am," and told no one. You see, if you have made a silent declaration about who you are, one so sacred and potent that it must remain unspoken to the world, it brings us to a brutal but essential truth. Who you believe you are will determine everything. That is not just poetic, and it is certainly not some esoteric abstraction. It is practical. It is psychological. It is foundational. Let me put it plainly. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. If you say, "I am," and you follow that phrase with something weak, something bitter, something that reflects your current struggle instead of your intended strength, then you are not speaking the future into existence. You are reinforcing the present prison, and you are doing it with conviction, with energy, with identity. Human beings are wired in a very particular way. You act in accordance with what you identify as. That is why these two words, "I am," are so deeply embedded in your psyche. They are not casual. They are declarations of being. And when you repeat them, they begin to shape the lens through which you perceive the world and, more importantly, through which the world responds to you. This is why people sabotage their own growth, because they are trying to achieve something without becoming the type of person who naturally achieves it. It is not enough to hope for wealth while still identifying as someone who is always scraping by. It is not enough to desire love while clinging to the belief that you are unlovable. That contradiction creates a split inside of you, a psychological war, and it paralyzes you. Do you know how many people live stuck in that contradiction? Thousands, millions, maybe more. They say they want to change, but every word they speak confirms the identity of the person they were yesterday. And the body listens, the brain listens, the world listens. You can't lie to yourself and expect real change. The unconscious mind, the core of who you are, doesn't respond to lies. It responds to belief that has been rehearsed into reality. So if you want to manifest anything, anything at all, you must first become the version of yourself who already has it. You must speak from that place. Think from that place. Behave as though it were already true. Not in a delusional way, but in a strategic, courageous, focused way. This is where the hard work comes in. Not the outer hustle, but the inner shift, the daily recalibration of your identity. You need to ask yourself, who am I being today? Do my thoughts match the future I claim I want? Are my habits aligned with the kind of person I say I am? It is tough, and it is sobering because most people want the result without the reconstruction. They want the fruit without growing the root. But reality doesn't work like that. Your identity is like a thermostat. You might spike in behavior, try something new, set a goal, declare a dream. But if your internal identity hasn't changed, you will snap back to where that thermostat is set. It is inevitable. That is why people who win the lottery usually lose it all. That is why people who suddenly fall in love often sabotage it, because the identity didn't match the blessing. And so the blessing gets rejected, whether consciously or not. So what do? You change the setting. You raise the standard. You stop saying, "I will become that someday," and start saying, "That is who I am now." And the moment you say it, not performatively, but sincerely, deeply, it starts to become true. You act differently, you speak differently, you see differently. Let me be brutally clear about something. This shift in identity is not comfortable. It will feel like lying at first. It will feel unnatural, but that is because you have spent so many years rehearsing a limited version of yourself. Of course, truth feels foreign if you have been loyal to falsehood for a lifetime. But that is no excuse to stay small. You are not meant to simply survive your story. You are meant to rewrite it. And that starts with the two words that define your character arc before the world ever sees the ending. I am. Not I wish, not I might, not I hope, but I am is where personal responsibility begins and personal power is born. What you are about to discover could rewrite your entire reality. And the strange thing is, once you start to speak those words, I am, from a place of deep conviction, once you begin to embody a new identity, instead of begging for a new outcome, something else happens. Something subtle, almost invisible, but incredibly profound. The world begins to shape itself around your assumption, and your imagination becomes the soil from which your future grows. That is not a metaphor. That is reality. You might think imagination is reserved for children or artists or storytellers, but that is dangerously naive. Every single person is imagining something all the time, and more often than not, it is unconscious. They are imagining rejection before it happens, failure before they even begin, conflict before the words are spoken. And because of that, their life becomes an exact mirror of the worst-case scenarios they have rehearsed 1,000 times in their own minds. The imagination is not optional. It is not a toy. It is the womb of your experience. If you imagine consistently from the place of the person you used to be, you will remain that person regardless of what affirmations you recite, what goals you set, or what external efforts you take. So this becomes the critical task. You must take control of what you imagine. This is where discipline meets vision. Imagination, when used intentionally, becomes your greatest tool, not for escape, but for embodiment, for becoming. So let's look at this carefully. If you want to shift your identity, if you want your words, those powerful declarations of I am, to stick, to take root in the subconscious and bear fruit in your life, you need to do more than say them. You need to see them. You need to feel them. And not as distant possibilities, but as present realities. Your imagination must begin to operate from the place you want to be, not toward it. That is the difference. Most people imagine forward. They look at their current circumstances. They look at the mountain ahead and then they say, someday I will get there. But that mindset traps them in the very reality they are trying to escape. Because as long as something is imagined in the future, it is not believed in the present. And what isn't believed now has no power to manifest. So what is the alternative? You imagine backwards. You place yourself mentally in the future, in the state already fulfilled. And then you look back from there with the confidence of someone who has already arrived. You say, of course this happened. I have lived it 1,000 times in my mind. And then something inside of you shifts. The fear begins to evaporate. The doubts lose their voice because you have made the future familiar. And what is familiar is no longer frightening. Now, this isn't fantasy. This isn't illusion. This is responsible creation. You have to remember that the subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what is real and what is vividly imagined. If you feed it an image long enough, especially one that is emotionally charged and repeated, it begins to organize your behavior consciously and unconsciously to make that image come true. And here is the key. This only works when you are consistent. When you are disciplined enough to stop returning to the version of yourself who doubts, who hesitates, who flinches, you must learn to live in the scene you have imagined day after day, regardless of what your senses tell you. That is the price of transformation, because there will be resistance. You will be tempted to check the mirror, to look at the numbers, to ask for reassurance. The mirror can only reflect the previous state of consciousness, not the one you have just stepped into. The world is slow to catch up, but it always does. The question is, will you hold the vision long enough for it to catch you? If you fold too early, if you abandon the imagined reality because the outer world hasn't yet conformed, then you have trained your mind to believe that only the visible is real. And in doing so, you sever the link between imagination and manifestation. But if you persist, if you stay in the inner movie long enough for the world to change its script, you will witness a shift so staggering, so undeniable that it feels like coincidence or even fate. But it is not. It is structure. It is cause and effect. It is the direct outcome of deliberate, disciplined inner vision. That is the real power of imagination. It is not fantasy. It is rehearsal. And your life, whether you like it or not, is the performance. Now, once you have rehearsed the inner vision with enough precision, once your imagination becomes the space you live in rather than just something you visit occasionally when the world gets too loud, something incredible begins to happen. You will notice a shift in your perception, a kind of internal recalibration where you stop reacting to life as though you are trapped inside it and start responding as though you have stepped outside of it. And in that space, in that moment, you begin to experience something that most people never even realize is possible. A shift in consciousness. It is not just a new thought. It is not just a better habit. It is an actual shift in the dimension of identity you occupy. And it is terrifying because to move from who you were to who you are becoming requires leaving behind everything that felt solid, even if it was miserable. That is the irony of transformation. People say they want change, but they cling to their familiar misery because it feels safe. But once you start stepping into this new space, not by force, but through repetition, through declaration, through imagining from the end, your consciousness begins to take on the texture of the life you have imagined. You stop trying to achieve the new life, and you start inhabiting it. That is what creates the real results. This isn't magic. It is structure. It is order. And it is built on a foundation of assumption. Assumption isn't wishful thinking. It is a kind of inner posture. It is the decision to walk, speak, think, and act from a state that hasn't yet shown up on your calendar, your bank statement, or your relationship history, but that already exists in the field of potential. And that field is real. More real than what you are experiencing right now, because what you are living today is just a delayed reflection of what you previously accepted as true. So the critical question becomes, what state are you assuming now? Not occasionally, not when you are inspired, but habitually, unconsciously, reflexively, because that assumption is doing more to shape your future than any plan or checklist you have put on your vision board. If you assume lack, you will manifest lack regardless of how many opportunities are presented to you. If you assume rejection, you will interpret every silence as proof that you are unwanted. If you assume powerlessness, then even in moments of strength, you will second-guess yourself back into weakness. Your assumption is the lens, and the lens controls what you see, how you interpret it, and how you act upon it. People often ask, how do I change my life? The better question is, how do I change what I assume about myself and the world? Because you can't change what you keep assuming to be true. You will just keep returning to it like gravity. And this is where responsibility comes into play. Brutal, uncomfortable, liberating responsibility. You are not responsible for everything that has happened to you, but you are responsible for what you assume about yourself in response to it. That is the line between victimhood and authority. That is where sovereignty begins. So how do you assume something new? You practice. You stop waiting for evidence. You stop measuring your worth by external confirmation, and you start rehearsing the internal alignment with such commitment that reality eventually has no choice but to follow suit. You sit with the new version of yourself in silence. You imagine how they speak. You practice how they walk into a room, how they handle conflict, how they respond to doubt, how they invest their time. And then you start living from that. Not all at once, but steadily, relentlessly. And it is uncomfortable because you are going to feel like a fraud. You are going to feel disoriented, but that is good. That means your old identity is being disrupted. That is the necessary chaos before the restructuring begins. And if you can hold the assumption long enough, despite the evidence to the contrary, despite the discomfort, despite the pull to regress, you will eventually feel it settle inside of you. You will no longer be reaching for a future self. You will be standing in it. Because assumption when sustained becomes identity, and identity when embodied reshapes everything. And once that identity settles, once the new assumption hardens into a quiet certainty, you face a final, often overlooked challenge. It isn't about effort now. It isn't about vision. It is about protection. You have to protect the seed. You have spent so much time speaking the new words, imagining from the end, assuming the state of the person you are becoming. And now, just like a sprout pushing up through the soil, your new identity is vulnerable. And if you are not careful, you will let the weeds of old habits and opinions choke it out before it ever gets the chance to bear fruit. That is the part no one tells you. Everyone is excited to plant the seed. Everyone wants the outcome, but very few are willing to stand guard while it is still fragile, while it hasn't yet bloomed, while there is no applause, no results, no external proof to justify the inner change. And this is where the test begins. Because right when you are doing the right thing, declaring, "I am," assuming the outcome, seeing yourself clearly, that is when the doubt comes. Not before. Not when you are buried in chaos. It comes when you are close. It comes when you are finally aligned. It comes when you are just beginning to walk like the person you claim to be. You will be tempted to say something careless. Something like, "Maybe this isn't working," or "What if I was wrong?" And those statements, those little compromises are not harmless. They are cracks. Cracks in the foundation you have been building. See, your words don't just build things. They also undo them. The moment you speak against what you have declared, even as a joke, even out of frustration, you are undoing the inner structure. You are sending mixed signals to your subconscious. You are giving it permission to return to what it previously knew, your old limitations. You can't afford that. Not now. Not after everything you have done. So, you must become a kind of guardian, a watchman over your inner world. You have to get militant about your language, both internal and external, not in a way that becomes neurotic or controlling, but in a way that reflects respect for the power you now carry. That means no leaking your vision to people who don't believe in it. No entertaining conversations that reduce you back to an older, smaller version of yourself. No passive self-deprecation. You protect the word you planted the same way a skilled craftsman protects his design before it is finished, with boundaries, with focus, with silence. Because the world will try to pull you back, not out of cruelty, sometimes even out of love. People who knew the older version of you will resist the new one, not because they hate you, but because your change challenges their assumptions. And this is when you have to decide, am I going to protect the seed, or am I going to give it away for approval? That is the core of it. Do you want confirmation from others, or do you want results? Because you don't get both. Not at this stage. There will be a period where no one understands what you are doing. They will say you have changed, that you are being distant, that you think you are better. Let them say it. Let them misunderstand you. You are not living for their narrative anymore. You are living from the truth you chose. And yes, it is lonely sometimes. Of course, it is. Growth often is. But loneliness is not emptiness. It is space. And space is exactly what your new identity needs to expand. So be deliberate with who you allow near your vision. Be ruthless about what you consume, what voices you listen to, what ideas you rehearse. If it doesn't build the version of you you are becoming, it doesn't belong in your mind. You protect the seed not because it is weak, but because it is becoming. And anything becoming must be shielded from forces that would rather it stay buried. So you speak less, you listen more, you walk quietly but with conviction. And every time the doubt comes knocking, and it will, you remind yourself you have already spoken the word. You have imagined the end. You have assumed the identity. Now all that remains is to guard the growth.